As usual, stick around until the end because you won't want to miss out on anything. Chicago Cubs versus New York Mets. Honestly, the matchup card here reads almost lopsided once you take a step back. One club rolls into Queens looking like a team that has figured itself out, comfortably above .500 and playing its best stretch of baseball after a sluggish patch a few weeks back. The other has been searching for some kind of real identity ever since that disastrous April that left them buried in last place of the National League East and questioning basically everything about themselves. You're talking about a club that, by any honest measurement, has been one of the more disappointing stories of the entire season. Then there's the pitching matchup on the mound, which is honestly the part that should make any handicapper raise an eyebrow before he even checks the lineup card. The roadside hands the ball to a left-hander who has quietly been one of the more reliable arms in their rotation, the kind of pitcher who works through 6 innings of 2- or 3-run baseball without making a lot of noise and lets the rest of the staff handle the back end. He's been keeping opposing hitters to a batting average somewhere around .217, walking almost nobody, and living in the strike zone in a way that's tough to square up if you haven't seen him before. The home side, on the other hand, is rolling out a starter who has yet to pick up his first win of the year and is carrying an earned run average that's, well, sitting somewhere in the neighborhood of 9. That isn't a typo. Hitters are slashing close to .300 against him. The back issue that had him on the shelf earlier in the season has clearly affected his rhythm, and the swing and miss stuff just hasn't been there in any consistent way. Add in the head-to-head context from earlier this year, when these same two clubs met up at Wrigley back in April and the roadside standing in the visitors' dugout tonight walked out of that series with a clean 3-game sweep, and the storyline between them is already partly written for us. The home team is also dealing with an injury list that reads like a roster sheet of its own. Their starting shortstop currently rehabbing in the minors, multiple bullpen arms parked on the 60-day list, and a middle infield that has been stitched together with whatever the front office can find. Sure, you could argue Citi Field has a way of waking up when the home crowd smells any kind of comeback, and that even disappointing teams can ambush you on a random Monday night. That's fair. Baseball is baseball. But when one side has the better starter, the better recent form, the head-to-head edge, and the healthier roster all stacked neatly in the same column, the value lands pretty much exactly where you'd expect it to. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago Cubs money line is our full game side pick. The conditions setting up for this one lineup surprisingly well for a busier night than your typical mid-June matchup. The forecast in Queens looks about as friendly as you can ask for. Temperatures sitting in the low 70s right around first pitch. The wind's light, no rain in the picture. Basically picture perfect baseball weather where the ball travels fine and nobody's grinding against the elements. That kind of setup tends to push a game closer to its natural run total rather than choking it down. What's really catching my eye, though, is what both lineups have been doing at the plate recently, because despite where each team sits in the standings, the bats on both sides have been pretty alive over the last couple of weeks. The home club has actually been hitting much better than their season-long numbers would suggest, mashing 14 home runs across their last 10 games and slugging at a clip that would have looked impossible back in April when they couldn't string together 2 hits to save their lives. Their right fielder has been on a tear that almost feels unfair, putting up a slash line that's hard to even type with a straight face and reminding everybody why he got that monster contract in the first place. The visitors aren't exactly slouching with the lumber either, averaging close to 9.5 hits per game across their last 10 outings and slugging just under .500, which is the kind of offensive form that travels well from Wrigley to anywhere else in the league. Their center fielder has been heating up too, carrying a hitting streak well into double digits and supplying some pop that's pushed the lineup forward in a way it really wasn't earlier in the year. Here's the piece that really tips the scale, though the home staff has been bleeding runs over the last couple of weeks, with a team earned run average over their most recent 10-game stretch sitting comfortably above 5. That's the kind of number that just doesn't whisper tight pitchers' duel coming together on this kind of evening. They've also surrendered 17 home runs across that same window, and Citi Field, for all the talk about it playing big, is not exactly a vault when the conditions cooperate and the wind decides to play nice. Now you could argue the visiting starter has been steady enough to keep runs off the board on his end, and that's fair, but even a quality start usually means he's handed it off by the 7th, and from there the game tips into bullpens that have been worked hard on both sides this month. Honestly, when both clubs are swinging hot bats, the matchup behind one of the starters looks tilted in a heavy way, and the weather isn't doing anybody on the defensive end any favors. The script tends to write itself. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Quick commercial break. You know the deal. If you want to get our exclusive best sport picks to take things to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Go check it out. Commercial break over. Now back to the game. Milwaukee Brewers versus Cincinnati Reds. The story coming into this one practically writes itself, and it leans heavily one way. Milwaukee has been the best team in baseball for roughly 2 months now, riding a sparkling stretch of 27 wins against 10 losses since late April, the kind of run that flips the entire narrative of a season. They walked into June with a comfortable cushion atop the National League Central, while their hosts have been stuck spinning their wheels, sputtering through a 5 wins to 11 losses skid in the same stretch and sliding toward the bottom of the division. And honestly, the timing of this opener could not be more brutal for the home side, with their dynamic young shortstop, the engine that powers everything they do offensively, still working through a rehab assignment and unavailable for tonight's lineup, with the earliest activation date not lined up until tomorrow at the soonest. The bullpen has been thinned out too, with the primary closer still parked on the injured list and the relief corps already grading out near the bottom of the league in runs allowed. On top of all of that, Cincinnati is sending a right-hander to the mound who has been one of the more punished arms in the National League this year, a guy carrying an earned run average north of 5 with a habit of letting baseballs leave the yard at an alarming clip over his last handful of outings. Now, there is a wrinkle here, and it would be reckless to ignore it. The visiting starter is returning from a near 2-month absence with shoulder concerns and reduced velocity on his fastball, sitting in the low 90s during his rehab work rather than his old upper 90s peak. That's a real counterweight, since rust is rust no matter how veteran the pitcher is. But here's the thing, even with that question mark sitting right there, the broader gap between these two clubs in form, lineup depth, and overall health is just too wide to fade the road favorite tonight. The visitors have their offense humming, with a 22-year-old outfielder absolutely scorching the ball in June, hitting well north of 300 with serious power and ranking among the hottest bats in the entire sport this month. Add their veteran face of the franchise back in the heart of the order, mix in the recent return of their corner infield power bat, and you've got a lineup tailor-made to feast on a struggling sinker baller in a friendly park. The math just keeps tilting toward one side here. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Brewers money line is our full game side pick. Shifting gears, this one feels like it's begging to clear the projected number before the 6th inning even rolls around. Great American Ballpark sits firmly on the short list of the most homer-friendly venues in all of Major League Baseball, a place where lazy pop-ups stretch into doubles and warning track flies sneak over the wall, and that reputation isn't a quirk of small samples. It's been the steady identity of the ballpark for years. And the right-hander getting the ball for the home club has been serving up long balls at a borderline historic clip, with 11 of them surrendered over a recent 5-start window and multiple homers allowed in back-to-back outings heading into this stretch, the kind of run that absolutely torches earned run averages in a hurry. He's an established sinker-first guy who lives on weak ground ball contact, but when that ground ball rate slips even a little and the pitch catches too much of the plate, the ball doesn't just leave the yard, it leaves loudly. Then look at the other side. The visiting starter is making his first big league appearance since the very end of April, still building back up from shoulder trouble, and even his manager has openly leaned on the build-up process rather than the expected results. Translation, the pitch count is going to be on a short leash. He's coming out somewhere around the 4th or 5th inning regardless of how he's pitching, and the bullpen is picking up the rest, which opens the door even wider given the home side's relief group has been hammered by injuries and inconsistency of its own. Now, you could push back and say both lineups can run cold at random and the home crew has scuffled to score plenty of times this season, and that's fair pushback. But the offensive firepower on the field tonight is real, with the hosts leaning on multiple bats already deep into double-digit home run territory and a rookie corner infielder smacking 14 long balls with 53 runs batted and already on the year, while the road club fields a lineup that's been bullying pitching staffs all month long. The weather forecast nudges things along too, with breezes drifting out toward the outfield and temperatures sitting in a comfortable hitting zone rather than the muggy chill that can deaden contact. When two questionable starters meet a homer-happy venue, with thin bullpens lurking in the middle innings, scoreboards tend to move quickly. Honestly, the runs feel like they're ready to flow tonight. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Los Angeles Dodgers versus Minnesota Twins. Tonight's series opener in Minneapolis brings something close to a heavyweight stepping into a regional venue, and that mismatch is worth sitting with for a minute. The visiting club walked into June with the best record in the entire sport, and they haven't really given much of it back since. A rough finale to their last home series put a small dent in the armor, sure, but rebound games for this group are practically a tradition by now. You don't end up two-time defending world champions without learning how to walk off a tough Sunday afternoon and reset by Monday night first pitch. The hosts have been doing some legitimately fun things in June, taking a sweep down in Texas and stealing the rubber game in Arizona, and their lineup has woken up in a meaningful way over the last couple of weeks. Honestly, the bats have been mashing baseballs over the wall at a clip that catches your eye on any leaderboard you pull up. Here's the thing though, recent flashes can flatter a roster that, when you stack it position by position against the team rolling into town, simply doesn't carry the same kind of depth from 1 through 9. The standings gap, somewhere in the neighborhood of 49 to 29 versus 38 to 41, isn't a fluke of the schedule. It reflects months of late-inning bullpen meltdowns from the home club, whose relief unit has been sitting dead last in baseball by earned run average essentially all year. That kind of structural soft spot has a nasty habit of getting exposed across 9 innings against a lineup that ranks near the very top of the sport in scoring runs per game. The trend handicappers will point out that the home dog has been a profitable angle lately, and that's fair. You have to acknowledge it. But you're still looking at the team winning at a championship pace squaring up against a club still trying to convince itself it belongs in the wild card conversation, and history has been pretty clear about how those Monday night business trips usually play out. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Dodgers money line is our full game side pick. Step back from picking sides for a second and just feel the shape of this matchup, because the pitching half of the equation is telling its own story before anyone throws a pitch. The visiting club is running a left-hander to the bump who's been one of the more homer-prone arms in either league this season, and that's not me being dramatic, that's just the math. Before changing organizations a few weeks back, he was actually leading the American League in long balls surrendered, which is the type of stat that doesn't get scrubbed off the resume just because the laundry changed. His career body of work against this particular opponent has been, to put it gently, unkind, with an earned run average that climbs into the high single digits. On the other dugout, the home club hands the baseball to a young right-hander who's been roughed up over his most recent run of starts, surrendering nearly a run an inning across his last 20-plus frames. 2 starters in those shapes, in a hitter-neutral park, with both lineups arriving in form, is the textbook setup for a long night for whoever has to update the scoreboard. Neither bullpen feels like a safety net at the moment either. The visitors just lost a key high-leverage righty to the injured list a couple of days ago, thinning out a relief corps that was already running hot from heavy June usage. The home side's bullpen issues are well documented and frankly haven't shown signs of fixing themselves anytime soon. The hosts have been authoring extra base hits at a borderline absurd rate over the last 10 games, slugging well north of 500 as a team, and the visiting lineup barely needs an invitation to put crooked numbers on the board. Weather around the ballpark tonight reads like a postcard for midsummer baseball. Comfortable temperatures sitting in the upper 70s at first pitch, a soft breeze that isn't going to suppress fly balls, no rain in the forecast to interrupt the rhythm. Sure, you could counter that one of these starters might catch lightning and find 6 clean innings. That's baseball. Anything can happen, but the broader run environment, the matchup pedigree, the depth on the back end of both staffs, it all tilts the same direction. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Arizona Diamondbacks versus St. Louis Cardinals. Honestly, there is a sneaky little tug toward the home dugout in this opener, and the longer you sit with the pitching matchup, the more obvious that pull becomes. One starter has been threading the needle lately, keeping the ball on the ground, missing barrels, and handing the ball to his bullpen without the kind of damage that flips a game upside down. The other arm, well, he has been the opposite story, getting tagged early, leaving pitches over the heart of the zone, and turning what should be quiet innings into traffic jams that snowball before anyone can warm up in relief. Plant that mismatch inside a ballpark where the home crew has been a steadier version of itself, sitting at 21-17 on their own turf, and the framing of this matchup begins to lean firmly in one direction. Now fair is fair. The home side has been knocked around in 3 of their last 4, including a rough loss earlier in the week that you cannot just sweep under the rug. So this is not some bulletproof pitch I am tossing at you. Here is the thing though, the visitors are dragging a 15-21 road mark behind them and recently absorbed a brutal shutout against a team they probably should have handled, which tells you their travel form has not exactly inspired much confidence either. Put it all together, the rested arm with the cleaner rhythm, the home park comfort, a Monday night 4-game series opener with a full crowd buzzing, and an opponent that has wobbled badly away from the desert, and the lean writes itself without needing to scream about it. As our first pick for this matchup, the St. Louis Cardinals money line is our full game side pick. There is something about this game that smells like a scoreboard about to climb in a hurry, and the deeper you look, the more the run environment feels stacked. Both relief crews have been leaking late, and when bullpens are unreliable on both sides, the 7th and 8th innings tend to become a coin toss that usually lands tails for anyone betting the run total down. The visiting starter has been hittable in a very specific way lately, surrendering loud contact and the kind of mistakes that travel a long way, which is a dangerous profile in late June when the air thickens and the ball carries a touch further than it should. Speaking of the conditions, a summer evening in the Midwest tends to live in that humid, sticky pocket where outfielders pause a half step before sprinting and routine fly balls sneak into the gaps for extra bases, and that is exactly the kind of environment that nudges totals upward by an extra run or two. The home lineup has also been pretty locked in at the plate over recent games, stringing together quality at bats and stacking base runners rather than relying on one swing to do all the heavy lifting, which usually translates to crooked numbers when the opposing arm is wobbling. Now I will give credit where it belongs. The home starter has a ground ball tilt that can cool a hot bat down if he is locating, and that is a real argument against piling on runs, no question about it. Still, even his sharpest evening does not erase what is brewing across the field, and once you factor in the visiting club's loud overtrend in road games against winning ball clubs, the path to a quiet, low-scoring night feels narrow and the path to a busy scoreboard feels wide open. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.